In addition, I want you to think of learning as a form of power. This is a very, very important core concept that I don't think we teach enough. Every time I start to do something, my first step is to learn. It's not to go do it. It's to stop and learn. Now, how do you learn? This, by the way, violates all of the academic disciplines, almost all of which, by definition, I think are inadequate. I would argue you want to follow knowledge as it is needed to solve problems. I mean, one of the great moments of my life is I was at Emory. I was a history major. Actually, I was originally a political science major, and then I switched to history. I was at a liberal arts college, and I knew that I didn't understand computers. And a friend of mine who was a state senator said, you ought to go over to Georgia Tech and meet a guy named Pete Jensen at the Rich Computer Center. This is 1965. And I walked in to see Jensen, and Jensen said, don't learn how to program a computer. He said, by the time you're going to want to use them, programming is going to be obsolete, and you're going to hire somebody to program it. He said, that'd be like teaching you how to drive by asking you to become a mechanic. He said, learn how to think about computers. And he said, now the first thing I want you to do is I want you to go read Drucker. And I want you to learn to think about what's called project evaluation and review technique, or a PERT chart, which is a way of thinking about doing a job. I'll show you later on. And I began to go down. I never took a course under Jensen. I just read about 50 books and talked to him for hundreds of hours. Because I wanted to learn. I wanted to follow the knowledge. Don't associate credentialing and learning. Learning occurs by learning what you need to know and going to whatever discipline you need for the next building block of learning. Credentialing occurs by sitting long enough that somebody stamps you with approval. They are not related. Similarly, I think there's a cycle that's involved, which I've literally lived through. You study, you apply, you get immersed, and then you reflect. Now, so first of all, you study it. You think through what are the principles. Then you apply it to your planning. Then you are immersed in doing. Then you reflect on doing. For example, on Wednesday when we got sworn in, I was purely in the immersion phase. I didn't have any time on Wednesday to do either studying or reflecting. We began reflecting late Wednesday night. But if you think of this cycle, you want to do something. First you study it, then you apply what you've studied to your particular project, then you immerse yourself in trying to get it done, and then you reflect on what new you've learned based on this cycle. Then you go back and start over again by deciding what you want to do next and studying again. I also believe passionately in apprenticeships, friendships, and the importance of permanent learning and permanent growth. I believe that you need to reach out, and I'll talk about this, you'll hear it again and again during the course. Find people who have already done what you want to do and learn from them. People love to teach. You go to somebody and say, teach me what you know. And the trick is simple. What do you want to do? Who's done it? Go find them. I believe in real professionalism, which is the application of systems that work, rather than either bureaucratism or disciplinism. Bureaucratism is purely the idea that the bureaucracy says do X even if it's stupid. So you get your hole punched and at least you did what they told you to even if it was dumb. Credentialism is you may not be able to speak German, but you have a credit that says you can speak German, so you can teach German even though you can't speak it. You may be able to speak German, but you don't have the credentials, so you can't teach it even though you can speak it. So we're now going to put the kids in a German class with a non-German speaker with the right credentials. We do that every day in this country today, and it is stupid. We should abolish it tomorrow morning. But I want you to understand the difference of the two models. I also understand that this is the moral purpose of this course. This course is essentially a moral course. It's essentially arguing there is in America, that America is good, that it's worth doing, that there is citizenship, that citizenship is your responsibility, that it's a partnership, which means you have to meet your half of the partnership. And in that sense, that this is well, it's a history course, and Dr. Minix has a history degree, and I have a history degree, and I think we can reasonably match our standards and the amount we've read with most historians, and we can match the course preparation with most historians. The truth is, this is, in the best sense of the old-fashioned word, a liberal arts course. This, of course, is about trying to think through life, and trying to think through society, and trying to think through culture, and whichever discipline we need to borrow from for the purpose of the course, we'll just borrow it, and then they can sue us later. The essence of the course is applying American civilization's principles to problem solving. So first you've got to figure out what are the principles of American civilization, and now how do we apply them to solve problems. Example, list 5 rules. I want you to try to do this for a second. List 5 rules you would tell an immigrant the first day they arrived in America. How would you teach them to children? Just think about it. Somebody walks up to you and says, hi, I landed there. I got off the airplane in Atlanta. I came from country X. I want to be an American. Give me an example. What's one example you'd give them? Huh?
Learn the language.
Learn English. Aha, see already you're now into, you already made a very key point. Should they really learn English? Isn't that sort of discriminating against their own language?
Yeah, they should.
Yeah, they should. There's a very practical reason they should. There's a very pragmatic reason they should. If you're going to be in this commercial economy, you better speak the language of the people who have the money.
Learn social customs.
Learn the social custom. Give me an example of a social custom.
Well, say modes of dress, things that we eat, times that we eat.
Okay. Of course, when you say things that we eat, this is the most diverse world civilization on the planet about things we eat. But there are limits. We don't, for example, practice cannibalism. So if you were from New Guinea or from the Brazilian rainforest, that might be an important point. I mean, you may laugh about it. As late as the 1840s, the British sent an officer to the Nash country in India to convince them to stop eating people. They had a habit of getting an annual slave, they fattened the slave, and then they killed the slave and ceremonially ate them. And this young British officer was sent there. This is from a book that's referenced in Drucker's The Effective Executive. Young officer is sent there, 24 years old. Sits down with the tribal chieftain. The tribal chieftain says, and this is very important about what I mean by civilization. The tribal chieftain says, well, of course you respect our customs. And he says, of course I do. And he says, our custom is to eat people. And he says, I respect that. He says, and of course you, O chief, are going to respect our custom. And he says, but of course I do. Our custom is to shoot people who eat people. They had a big tribal meeting, gave it up, and they haven't had